and active and vital power.
I love that.
Okay,
So
Qing Bao, green and treasure in Mandarin.
Okay.
Qing evokes the lush and mountainous habitat of pandas. So there you go. That's the definition of the names right there.
And them trading their habitat in China, of course, for our national zoo, where they will be there in quarantine, just getting acclimated to DC and everything that entails for about a month or so. So we do want to stress that the pandas, yes, they have landed at Dulles, and they will go to the National Zoo, but unfortunately, we won't be able to get a good look in person for about a month or so.
So don't go out there right now. Don't run out there tomorrow
I know we want
looking for pandas because they're not going to be available yet. They got to go through the process and get ready. As you just mentioned they're going to be in quarantine to make sure that they're okay physically and they don't spread anything to anybody else at the zoo. So they will not be available for everybody to run out there to see tomorrow.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been 11 months now since we have had no pandas at the National Zoo, right? So it's been nearly a year since we've had no pandas at the zoo, a very exciting time. Pandas are an iconic story for our nation's capital. They left for China last night. And they made that long journey across the Pacific Ocean, landed here in Dulles just a few minutes ago. So you are looking live right now at the Panda Express as they sort of get everything situated. But from here, they will make that journey to, I believe, the National Zoo, where they will call the next 10 years home.
This is going to be exciting. We're going to see, I anticipate, the crates coming off and these 2 crates carrying so much joy. You know, I just remember 11 months ago when this happened, it just felt like the end of a true era. They had been here since, 1972, and just seemed like in different iterations. And then, yes, we saw them go back because they're pretty much on loan, right, to us. And then when they left in November, I was really bracing for them to be gone. And then we got word in the spring, May or so, that we would get a new pair.
That's exactly what it felt like. There was that feeling of, will they come back? A little bit of that uncertainty. And then last night, I saw social media blowing up that we were getting pandas.
And pandemonium ensued.
Yeah, and speaking of history and pandemonium, you talked about 1972 when Nixon was president. He was on a mission, a diplomatic mission, over to China at the time. Now they were having dinner. He and the First Lady were having dinner with the leader of China at the time. And during that dinner, the First Lady, Patricia Nixon, actually saw pandas on a pack of cigarettes that were on the table. She actually saw a panda and said, "Oh, those are cute." And then the leader of China said, "Oh, you want some? you want some?" And she was like, "Sure." And the next thing you know, he sends 2 pandas over to the United States as part of diplomacy. And then a couple of weeks later, after that fact, they had a welcoming ceremony. And the First Lady was there at the National Zoo to welcome these 2 pandas, the first 2, back in 1972. And she said these words: "I think pandemonium is going to break out right here at the zoo."
And we've been saying it 50 years.
And we've been saying it ever since then, talking about pandemonium at the zoo.
Those first 2, Ling Ling and Xing Xing, way back in 72.
And as we take a live look here, this is Dulles International Airport. The plane just landed. I see the door has opened, but just to bring folks up to date here, we have 2 new giant pandas in Washington, D.C., truly a new chapter. Bao Li, 3 years old, a male, and we should share a little bit of the history behind Bao Li. His mom is Bao Bao, who we all know, right? Bao Bao was born at the National Zoo, a bit of a celebrity herself. She was born in 2013 and then left us after 4 years. So what is that, 2017? And Bao Li's grandparents are Mei Zhang and Tian Tian. And for me, they too are sort of the iconic couple at the National Zoo because they were there for what, like 23 years or so. Yeah. And Xing Bao is 3 years old. She is a female. And she is here for the first time. This is just an exciting time, not just for animal lovers, but for our local community, tourists, and this will surely reconnect us back to the National Zoo because, let's face it, the pandas are a big attraction to the National Zoo.
And just piggybacking off of that for a second, Annie, like all the businesses that are around the zoo.
Yes.
I remember
the neighbors.
Last winter when we did that series on businesses, I remember remember speaking with the small business, and a lot of their merchandise had pandas on it, and they're like, well, we're hopeful they'll come back, and so it's just a ripple effect.
And what's also something that we need to think about is pandas are often that symbol for wildlife conservation.
Right.
So there is good work, there's a purpose to them being here. It's not just for us to go and ooh and ah. Of course, we love them so much and our kids love them, but there is true meaning to the reason why they are here. The scientists, conservationists working really hard to save the pandas and other wildlife.
Right. And you want to talk about, you know, we talked a lot about the Panda Cam as well. That was huge because when they first launched the Panda Cam back in 2011, they had millions of people consistently watching the pandas and all their activities. Now, right now, that Panda Cam is not up, obviously, because the pandas are on that plane and not at the National Zoo. But at some point, once they get in and get settled and get used to their new surroundings, the Panda Cam, which is being revamped right now, along with their living facilities as well, all of that's being revamped. Once that is done and taken care of, and the pandas are in their natural habitat at the zoo, then the Panda Cam will be up and running live again, and you can watch the pandas as they live here in Washington, D.C.
Look at all of the crew right there. Imagine. I mean, this is a joyful day. It's really nice to be able to have extended coverage on something that is bringing so much joy and really unity to the area and to the United States. Like this, we claim this zoo. This is the Smithsonian.
100%.
Right. This is the nation's zoo, and just a crown in a jewel in the crown of the Smithsonian, as far as I'm concerned. So it's something that makes DC really distinct and just makes us really special, and this makes us even more special. To all the animals who have been holding it down, though, for 11 months.
Thank you.
We see
you.
you.
Thank you for
Red
your
pandas, we see you. Giraffes, elephants,
but you know,
this is great.
Speaking to the National Zoo, this is the only place in the entire country that you can see the giant pandas for free. That is how special our National Zoo is.
Because there are other
zoos.
right?
Atlanta, yes, they
one
have
of them.
pandas there as well.
Right.
But you know, speaking to the joy part, it is a joyful day because I know for my own child who has been to the National Zoo many times, she is so excited that they're back.
The excitement
It gives
again.
us a reason to head back out to to the other animals.
Right.
But she's really excited, and I mean, she's been there since she was able to walk.
I love that.
So,
and look, kids
I
of
know a
all
lot
ages,
of families can relate to that.
We'll go back and all of the special programming that the zoo does, especially, and I think you mentioned it, during the holidays will be in full effect.
Yeah, Boo at the Zoo,
when we'll come and see
zoo
the
lights.
pandas, and who doesn't love to see them frolic around in the snow? It's, they're used to that cold climate. So, exciting times to come.
All right. In the meantime, we are all over this story. We have a live coverage this morning. And we want to get out to Jacqueline Quinn now, who has been on the trail of the pandas all morning long. Jacqueline, good morning to you. Good to see you. Is that the actual plane behind you, or is that another FedEx plane? I can't see it over your shoulder.
I can hardly see it either. That's why I was standing over there by the viewfinder with Deanna so that I could see if the door was even open. We're watching very closely. I'll just step out again because I want to know, too, when they open that door and if we can see a sneak peek, perhaps, when they load the crates onto that ramp, it looks like, and then potentially bring it onto a truck and bring it all the way over to the zoo. But, yeah, a very exciting day. It's not just media out here that has turned out to watch the arrival. We saw this plane probably just come in about 10 minutes ago, I estimate. It's actually arrived here early, about 6 minutes, but right on time as far as I'm concerned. But people from all over have just wanted to come out here to see this landing. I know that one person, he had his camera with all of the attachments just to get this, and maybe even a special glimpse here of the panda. Let's listen in on just how he prepared, because you know what? You kind of get one shot when this plane lands and to take perhaps a special picture.
I feel great. It's maybe my last time to see the plane. Maybe they come back in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You have to try the best shot for you.
So this is a live look right now. We are again waiting for those doors to open, and hopefully we can see either maybe Bao Li or Qing Bao loaded. And we know that now that they're here, they have to be taken over to the National Zoo. There is a quarantine period of 30 days, and then we're going to be waiting a couple weeks once they get acclimated to their surroundings, and then they'll make their debut. And I'm sure to a large crowd, people so excited. You know, we were just there earlier today, and you saw the signage up there advertising the pandas, but for so long, I mean almost a whole year, they have not been there. So really a disappointment to some of the visitors, especially young kiddos who have tried to come over there to see, like you guys were talking about, bringing them to see the pandas during the holidays and those special occasions. They haven't been there. And you know, this is just really something that is also good for the businesses, because while I was out there earlier today, you know, we talked to some of the businesses across the street, and they were talking about how, you know, some of this excitement really brings in business. It was a Starbucks, and there's a bakery there. You know, they sell things that are panda themed, and it really hasn't been as busy, they said, in this time that the pandas have been away. So now they're going to be waiting potentially for those big crowds to come back again. And then, of course, you know, we're going to be following this. We're going to wait as well to see their debut. We have never seen these pandas here before. These are new, right? You know, although one of them related to Bao Bao, who, if you remember, was born here at this zoo. That's the mom to Bao Li back in 2013. So I think I'm trying to take a peek here, a look back there. I still don't see anything open. We're waiting. We see a lot of ground crews out there. They came out there as soon as this plane landed, but I don't see quite any movement yet, and I'm going to keep an eye on it for you guys.
Jackie, we're so jealous, Jackie. You've got that front row seat.
You are experiencing history, my friend.
Yeah. Now these pandas, as they're making their journey across, we talked about the training they went through and everything and all. So these crates that they were in, as they went through this process, they were bigger than normal crates that they're in. So the trainers, what they did is, once they took them out of general population at the zoo, they opened the door and allowed the pandas to walk themselves in. They didn't force the pandas to go into these crates, so they could get used to them. And once they walked inside the crates,
now
they
they
left
did
the
have
door
a ton of bamboo and
I was going to say,
food was involved.
An ice cake or whatever to lure them.
Carrots, all those kinds of things. Once the panda got in there and started eating all these things in this giant crate, they talked about how it was hard to get the panda to come out.
Oh yeah.
Once they were in there, they
they're
were
no
comfy.
dummies.
Yeah.
Nobody said they were dummies.
Right. So
They're
they
like,
got
we're going to the U.S.
Right. They got in, got comfortable, and they went through that process for a couple of days, so that when it was time for them to get on the plane and actually make this long trip, they had already been used to it.
I think it's sweet. Somebody, it might have, I forget who said it, but that maybe Bao Li and Mama Bao Bao had a conversation about where they were going.
Yeah, Jackie.
I mean, because, you know, of course there's language
Now
and all
you're
that.
going to another country.
I know, and maybe
we'll be separated
I
for
know,
years.
which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But
Parents were there, that whole thing,
And you know, they left a beautiful area in southwest China, the mountainous habitat that they are. That's the research center. But you know, to your point, they got practice in with the crates and made that long journey here.
Right. And there's a whole crew on that plane that was dealing with them too. We were talking about the people that deal with animals. There are some other officials that are on there as well. And their specific job was to make sure that once they got on that plane, everything went according to plan, and to take care of those pandas and make sure they got here.
I do have a question for the trainers. I do wonder if the pandas are spoken to in Mandarin, the commands are in Mandarin or in English, because I mean that might make a difference. Or are they hand gestures?
Right.
And we're going to move on. You talked about it before. They're no longer an endangered species, probably because of conservation efforts like
important work.
So when the two new pandas arrive at their new home at the National Zoo anytime now, things will look a little bit different from when we last had pandas. The zoo says they've been renovating the area ahead of the big arrival, and the zoo added new climbing structures for the pandas, water features, and rock work that encourages the bears to exercise and to play. The zoo also added a new ventilation system that provides improved air quality and temperature control, and an upgrades to smoke evacuation network in case of an emergency. And they say they upgraded their giant panda cam so we can see them all the time.
Okay, we can stalk them.
Right.
In a
we didn't
good
want to
way.
say it, but yeah, we're going to be stalking you.
Now, we know that you guys probably have some questions about the zoo's new pandas. We do too. So joining us right now is Georgetown University professor Dennis Wilder, to talk more about the pandas. Professor Wilder, good morning. Thanks so much for taking some time out to chat with us. How excited are you?
Hello?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. How excited are
Okay.
you, Professor, about the arrival of the two pandas?
Well, this wasn't a sure thing. You know, for a while there, the Chinese put on hold giving us any pandas. After Balloon Gate, you may remember in February of 2023, Chinese were pretty angry with us. And so they weren't negotiating with the San Diego Zoo or the Washington Zoo. And so people wondered whether we would ever get pandas back.
They sure did leave here with a bit of uncertainty in the air, but we are happy to start this new chapter. And you know, we often hear that term, panda diplomacy. They've become a symbol for not only wildlife conservation, but also this relationship between the U.S. and China. So can you speak to that goodwill relationship between the two countries?
Sure. Well, I think, as was mentioned earlier, this all began with President Nixon's groundbreaking trip to China and the fact that Pat Nixon asked Premier Zhou Enlai about pandas. It is a symbol of the relationship. It's something the Chinese are very proud of their pandas. Of course, they are exclusively from China. They give them to several zoos in the United States. San Diego, Atlanta, Memphis had pandas, and the Washington Zoo. The Washington ones are particularly important as a political symbol because, as you mentioned earlier, presidential wives have been involved in the negotiations. The Chinese see this as a real symbol of people-to-people relations at a time when the overall relationship is kind of rocky. And so we're happy to have the pandas because Americans love to see them, and the Chinese like to show off their culture, show off something very unique to China.
Very unique to China indeed. And you know, while we love to see them and visit them, our children love to see them, you know, there is important work going on behind the scenes, wildlife conservation efforts, raising awareness about wildlife protection and habitat and so on. So can you speak to the endangered studying happening behind the scenes?
Well, until actually these exchanges with the United States, pandas in China were really on the verge of extinction. And I think Americans can be very proud of the fact that our zoos very much gave the Conservation Society of China a leg up. The money that we have provided to the Chinese Conservation Group has helped them to build a beautiful panda sanctuary. There are many more pandas in the wild now, but also about 600 of them in the conservation area. So they're no longer on the endangered species list. And frankly, I think American zoos deserve a lot of credit for helping with this process.
Okay, I may be jumping ahead with this, but
When can we see the pandas?
What does the breeding program look like here? I mean, you know, if history is any indication, you know, you had Meizhong, Tiantian, and they had pandas. What does that look like for us?
Well, the Chinese agreement with us is that if a panda baby is born, it can stay here for 4 years.
Okay.
And then it will need to go home to be raised in China.
Okay.
But they certainly are very eager for more pandas to be born. And again, they come as well to inspect our facilities. So it is very much a joint process of both the American zoologists and the Chinese zoologists.
And okay, so that makes sense. That's why Bao Bao left after 4 years. Is that right? I mean, she was born in 2013 and left after 4 years.
That's right. And when a baby is born, we have to pay an extra $500,000 a year for that 4 years, and then they go home.
Mr. Wilder, I have a quick question for you. This
Sure.
has been since 1972. That's when this all started. That day, when they arrived here in 1972, that day they had like 20,000 people at the zoo that day to look at these pandas. And now Panda Cam is a big thing. And now every time the pandas leave, people are sad. Now we're getting the pandas back. Everybody's excited. What is it about we got other animals, but what is it about these pandas that drives people to the point where pandemonium, panda crazy, whatever you want to call it?
Well, they're so darn cute.
Yeah.
I mean, they perform. Unlike other animals, they just love to be seen. They love to roll down hills. Of course, even when they're eating the bamboo, it's unique and fun. And they're just so appealing. Their colors, their cuddliness.
They talk about the head shape.
The whole picture is pretty good.
They talk about the head being
And
so
the
large
eyes.
and it make like a baby.
Yeah.
It just draws
Yeah.
us to
Right.
them. They're so unique.
They are so
Right.
cute.
And of course, we've created Kung Fu Panda films. I
Right,
understand
right.
Kung Fu Panda number
Eating
4 is coming out.
dumplings.
Yeah.
I often say that whenever I see them rolling down the hill, I think of the scene from Kung Fu Panda where they just roll down the hill. Professor Wilder, this has been great. Thank you so much for the insight. We will definitely be tapping you for future interviews on the pandas.
You're the fourth
All
anchor
right.
now.
Yeah, welcome to Get Up DC.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. With all the excitement surrounding the pandas' arrival, we decided to look at some fun facts around these beloved bears. So, since the People's Republic of China formed in 1949, the country has used giant pandas as a form of diplomacy towards its international allies and competitors, and that's what Professor Wilder was speaking of, that relationship.
They knew how cute they were.
Oh, yes.
It will melt the hearts of whomever sees them. Chinese Communist Party leader Mao Zedong gifted the first panda to the Soviet Union in 1957.
Now, the National Zoo got our first set of Chinese pandas 15 years later in 1972. This was just 2 months after First Lady Patricia Nixon was visiting in Beijing, China, and told her dinner host that she loved pandas. Therefore, Ling Ling and Zing Zing gave birth to 5 cubs while here in D.C., but sadly, none of those cubs survived. So, yeah. And I told the story earlier about how she was sitting at the table with the Chinese leader, and they were on a box. There were pandas on a box of cigarettes, and she said, "Oh, they're cute." And then the leader was like, "You want some?" And then next thing you know, they sent 2 pandas over here.
That's why you should always just say what's on your mind.
Yeah.
Right.
And look at
And
us. We
network.
benefited
Be
from it.
social.
Right.
Right, and the rest is history.
The first couple might not have, produced any little baby. Produce sounds so mechanical. Had any kids.
Right.
But through the years, man, we've just watched with bated breath as these pandas come out there. How many times have we said the phrase, the size of a stick
Yeah,
of butter?
they literally
Right,
are a
right?
butter stick.
These tiny,
Right.
and then they just grow into these beautiful animals that we love so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know that the pandas eat bamboo.
Yes,
They eat lots
a
of
lot
it.
of
They
it.
love bamboo.
They love it.
All right. So it typically grows in warm and moist climates. And thanks to our warm temperature and climate here, we can grow bamboo right here in the DMV as well. The zoo's Department of Nutrition grows bamboo at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute in Royal Front in Virginia. It also cuts bamboo from 20 stands across DC. That bamboo is then fed to the National Zoo's pandas. So there you go.
And I just have to share
Special bamboo.
this little insight that I saw from the trainer. The trainer says Bao Li, the boy, right? Bao Li just has a great appetite and really lives up to his name, Precious Vigor. The female, Xing Pao, she means green treasure. This is a quote, so forgive me here, but it says, lazy and loves to sleep. And that is from the trainer in China.
Yeah.
That the female panda is,
Right.
quote, lazy and loves to sleep.
Hey.
And when she wants to have some exercise, she would climb a tree. But
She
Bao
lost
Li,
me there. I was going to say, that's my spirit animal.
right,
but the
right.
inflammatory part.
Meanwhile, Bao Li, the 3-year-old male, is
Yeah.
very energetic and a great eater, according to the
That's so
trainer.
cute.
It's a lot of bamboo.
They're going to be so much fun
Yeah.
to see.
So fun.
All right.
And we all know that pandas are very cute, but do not be fooled by their cuteness because a
Yeah.
panda's jaw is very strong. They have a bite strength similar to that of a lion. So
Well, we
there's
did have
some
to get that out.
perspective for you.
We did have to get that out. Right now, though, let's go back to Jackie Quinn. She's out at Dulles, where the pandas arrived a short time ago. What's going on?
Hey, a very exciting moment right now. We we believe we can see a little bit of the crate actually being loaded onto the equipment there and maybe being lowered. I'm going to get out of the way so Deanna can zoom in. It might be blocked a little bit by the tail of the other FedEx plane, but yes, that is the FedEx Panda Express. They landed about 20 minutes ago, actually a little early by our app that let us know, where it was in the air. And so they did open that cargo. The cargo door there in the back, and it looks like we're seeing some movement, possibly one of those crates carrying either Bao Li or Qing Bao. We're so excited to welcome them back here in the local area in the DMV, because this is something that really does draw out a lot of visitors and even the locals, of course, especially young children. So I don't know if we want to pull all the way back, but there's a ton of people out here, of course, a lot of media, but also just enthusiasts, people who are, maybe amateur photographers, kind of out here getting the plane landing, but also maybe to get a shot of one of the pandas. And so I talked to one man. He is from Maryland. His name is Christian Ponce, and he says you only get one shot. And here's what he had to say about just being ready for this moment.
I feel great. It's maybe my last time to see the plane. Maybe they come back in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You have to try the best shot for you.
Okay, so I think you're seeing an overhead shot right now. Perhaps you can see some movements and maybe a crate, because I clearly saw something that was white. It looked like it was being lowered at the time. Now, and I'm being told right now that crate is moving. Okay, of course, once they do this, they're going to have to bring the pandas back over to the National Zoo. And again, if we understand correctly, they have a quarantine period about 30 days, and then they're going to have to acclimate to their surroundings, get used to that before they make their debut. In addition, the zoo is also closed today, right? All this activity, they wanted to make sure that everything would be set. Now, something interesting about the pandas, right? They're brought here for this breeding program, and when I was reading about this, it says that they can only breed about like once a year, and that is in the spring. And so this is a female and male panda, and I believe that they're hoping that maybe we will see an offspring sometime in the future. But it looks like no pressure here. It looks like maybe they are going to have to see if something will happen here, some magic in the spring here. And it looks like I'm being told another crate. I can't see very well. You really have to have a camera to zoom in on this. But actually, I'm making it out through that cargo door. See one crate moving, and then I think they lower that onto a flatbed or a truck. And again, getting this crate ready for transport over to the National Zoo. And of course, caretakers, I mean, you saw the team out here, as soon as they landed, people started, surrounding this plane to make sure that they can take care of these pandas. And we're just as excited watching all of this unfold before us. I'll send it back to you guys for now.
Hey, Jackie, we're in D.C. We're used to motorcades with the president and the vice president and heads of state. Any idea about what that motorcade might look like, or what's the plan getting from Dulles all the way to Northwest D.C. at the zoo?
It's not clear. It's not clear to me right now, but you can see, law enforcement out here on the runway. So I imagine that there is going to be some kind of, security around the transport of the pandas. And once again, because of the concern, perhaps, the zoo didn't really want to give out a lot of details. And we know that they closed today. And normally when they are around, it's very busy. So they are really, doing what they can. As far as I can see right now, no motorcade quite exactly here, but remember, we're just here on this space close to the runway, close to the tarmac where this FedEx Panda Express just landed. I think we're going to be able to see that motorcade shortly once this gets moving. And again, we do have that overhead, the helicopter shot, so we'll be following this, and I'll update you as soon as I know a little bit more about that.
We talked about this. We've said this a couple of times. If you are watching this on stream or at home, wherever you are, do not go to the zoo tomorrow, because the pandas will not be available. They are going to be in quarantine for probably at least 30 days, so they can get situated and checked out before they are out to the public. The Panda Cam also will not be up and running until they are cleared to go out into their new surroundings. And that's when Panda Cam will go live, and then you can watch the pandas all the time. And then you can go to the zoo and check them out. But we're going to say this again, they will not be available probably for the next 30 days. So don't run to the zoo tomorrow to see pandas.
Though we want to.
Pandas.
I'm just looking up the directions here. They could take a lot of different routes, I guess, but it looks like it's about 41-minute drive from Dulles to Northwest DC,
They'll
of
have
course.
to pay the Dulles toll
Yeah,
road
there'll be a toll. There's a toll road there,
Yeah.
but they can take 495 to the Chain Bridge Road and then do it that way. But who knows
maybe
which
they can
way they'll
bypass the
go.
construction happening there.
Absolutely. They
Yeah.
can make make a way. But look, it looks like they're taking them into a
Yeah.
garage right there. And that's so
True
exciting, guys. Look at
VIPs.
that. That's
Yeah.
Bao
This is amazing.
Lee and that's Ching Bao. They're here in DC all the way from China in those crates right there. Hopefully they had a nice comfy trip and
Yeah.
they were able to sleep for the most part. We know
And eat lots of bamboo.
we know our girl Ching Bao from what you just said, Annie. She got her nap on.
She's
So
like, I'm going to take a nap.
And
for
Jacqueline,
13
are you there?
hours.
If you're still there, just jump into this conversation as well, because you're witnessing this, and
Yeah.
we're talking about. We see them go off into the darkness right there as they get ready to get in whatever their means of transportation will be to take them to the zoo. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Yeah, we're just standing, I'm standing here just off to the side here because I want to see exactly what direction they're going to be taking off in as well. But, just about 20 minutes ago, or maybe 25 now, we did see them touch down here. And then the crews came out, of course. It looks like there's some law enforcement presence out on the tarmac at this point. And then once they're able to load the pandas onto, it looks like a truck, then they can make the transport. And we are waiting for that moment right now. But I think they're going to take everything slowly, right? They want to make sure the pandas are okay. And of course, they had their food and their snacks, their medication, and get them very comfortable so that they can do that transport. We're just watching out here to see a little bit more movement, although I think that the two crates that we were looking for, they did come out initially. And I think we have some of the overhead shots too to see you, to give you a better overhead view. But right now, not a whole lot of movement. We're going to expect more of that coming over to the zoo. And, I was telling you, and while we were over there earlier this morning, the signage is still up, the kiosks are still out. The kids have been looking for the pandas, visitors. They still come here because you guys mentioned they're not everywhere, right? Only the countries with good diplomatic ties actually get these pandas, and so you can only find them in San Diego, Atlanta, and here. But I want to say, maybe it's a bias here, that a lot of people know that there are pandas in DC, so they come here, and when they don't, it's a bit of a disappointment. Not only the visitors, but the locals. Really, a lot of us are fans too, but those businesses around there, they said that in the last year, the last 11 months, I should say, they really haven't felt the crowds come into their business, and I think some of them really rely on that. Those busy weekends, people excited, they have that merchandise or the cake pops that are panda themed, and without the pandas, not as many people may come. It'd be interesting to see what the number of attendance has been at the zoo. Of course, it's free, but you still got to get that ticket, just a reservation online. So now they're back, and I know everybody wants to go out to the zoo again, but as we mentioned, the zoo is closed today, potentially so that everyone can get ready. This is going to be a big production to get the pandas from the plane here. And they traveled they had to traverse the Pacific, stop in Alaska, so it wasn't a direct flight, even for the pandas here, even though it looks like they had a chartered plane. And then they made that trip about 6 hours from Alaska all the way over here to DC. And now the final stages, right? Getting them ready to go back to the National Zoo. Again, there's an acclimation period, that quarantine period of 30 days. So probably over a month before they make their debut or more. And we get to see them and be amongst that crowd. And of course, we will be there hopefully on that day to see them as they make their debut. For now, I'll send it back to you guys.
We will
must
definitely be there.
Be there. How exciting. So these two new...
I meant for me personally.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Arguably DC's newest residents have arrived at Dulles, and again,
popular
which is, I
residents.
know, really popular. What you're looking at there is the arrival. We saw the plane come in, and then Bao Li and Ching Bao, a boy and girl giant panda, they have arrived. We saw the crates come off of that 777. We saw them go into that garage. And how funny is it that you could be driving along today in this time span, and you could be driving next to to them, and you
to the
oh, look
pandas.
here, there's a
Right.
FedEx
Front row
truck
seats to
with
history.
with two
Right.
very special inhabitants. You know, I was stuck on the fact that that first couple lost 5. They produced 5 babies, but no birth
it was
was
a long
really
journey.
viable. Right. It wasn't until 2005 that Tyshawn was born, and I think that that was the panda that really just captured all of our attention because he was the first surviving cub, and that really wasn't that long ago. So we saw many cubs after Tyshawn, but Tyshawn in 2005, I think that that was, for me in my time, of course, I was around when the first pair came, but for my time here in DC, and I don't know about you guys, but it felt like Tyshawn was the baby that we just all like loved and adored. And when he left, it felt like that was really a dagger. But now we have Bao Li and Ching Bao.
And I remember being out there. You're talking about Tyshawn.
Fun assignment.
Out there on coming out there on assignment, doing panda stories, and I'm like, oh wow, this is a huge deal. People love the pandas here. Now these two
They
pandas.
become our unofficial mascots.
They are.
Dare I say?
Yeah, and you have to. It's a lot of hurry up and wait because you're on their time.
Right.
They don't always come out of the enclosure. So even if you're covering it or if you're going out to visit, it's a lot of waiting around for the panda to make an appearance. But once they do, man, everyone's just clicking away trying to get that glimpse of the panda.
I'm excited to see what they've done with the new enclosure. You know, I think that it's awesome that they've prepared for this this next phase of our pandemonium, and it's going to be an exciting experience. But if you've made a trip out to the zoo, you know they have, it's really an education when you go in there. They have all of the reading material and the history there of the pandas. So yeah, these are coveted animals, and I know that we're all really grateful that they're back in DC.
Now the Smithsonian, as far as their habitat and where they're living, where the pandas will live, the Smithsonian, it's on their page as well. They have raised a lot of money and they continue to raise money. And what that money goes into is upgrading and updating the pandas' natural habitat over at the zoo, because one of the issues here versus where they're coming from is they can deal with the cold weather, but when it gets a little warm here. So they had to upgrade some of the systems that they have in place to keep these pandas cool. Of course, right now it's not hot, but in the summertime, when it is hot, they had to upgrade a lot of the things over there to keep these pandas in good condition so they'll feel comfortable, so that they will come out and interact with the public once they are trained. And also it cost $1 million a year.
Yeah.
These pandas are on loan for both pandas, $1 million a year in conservation fees that go back to China for 10 years. So it's $10 million for 10 years for these pandas to be over here in the United States.
And still
as
at
well.
no cost to you when you go and visit, at least
Right.
here in the Smithsonian National Zoo.
Right.
I'm just kind of going through some of the sentiment that I see on social media. Of course, major outlets reacting to it, like Dulles Airport is tweeting about it or putting it on X, but also just everyday people, Washingtonians, and oh my God, the panda landed. I mean, just a lot of reaction. So
And it's
really exciting time in the nation's capital.
And it might be the one thing, you know, locals, we're like, oh, we don't go see the monuments. We go see the pandas.
Yes.
Which is so, you know, it
Yes,
just
we
speaks
do.
to their appeal. So we're so happy they're back. All righty. Well, I think that's going to do it for us here on WUSA 9 Plus. It's been our pleasure to be with you and witness the arrival of our pandas together. It really has been.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow morning.
425.